about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many of you saw this study that came out suggesting that our water fluoridation could be a cause for rising autism. The autism level in kids, as well as some other neurodevelopmental disorders, have been growing over the decades. Some people say it could be that we're screening it better. It could be because we have a higher population. So the more kids, the more numbers. But RFK Jr., through his MAHA, Make America Healthy Again movement, vowed to look deeper into why autism cases are rising at the behest of President Donald Trump. And he also has not been a fan of us fluoridating our water. We started fluoridating our water back in, I believe, in the 1940s to try to prevent tooth decay, which was very successful, by the way, in doing that because we had fluoride deficiencies. And now that we have fluoride toothpaste and, more access to dental care and more access to fluoride, are we over fluoridating? So this study was published, and I apologize. I want to, my computer doesn't work as quickly as I want to. The study was published in BMC Pediatrics. And it looked at tooth decay prevention and neurodevelopmental disorder risk following childhood fluoride exposure. Now, some studies are saying that, so basically they looked at health records from 1990 to 2012, looking at 73,000 children in Florida during the first 10 years of their lives. They found an increase, although it did help prevent tooth decay. They saw a 526% jump in the risk of autism spectrum disorder among children with full access to fluoridated water, an increased risk for intellectual disabilities by about 102%, developmental delays by 24%. Now, this was looking at fluoridated tap water in Florida. So according to their results, they say Florida exposure in the year of birth statistically significantly and dose-dependently slightly reduced the risk of tooth decay, but separately slightly increased the risk of autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, intellectual disabilities, and during the first two and specific delays in development. They said during the first 10 years of life, children who were fluoride exposed as opposed to unexposed were at significantly lower risk for tooth decay, and separately at significantly greater risk for autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability, and specific delays in development. I'm sorry, boy, is my lisp having an issue today. Sorry about the lisp. So even though the study wanted to say, look, it's protecting teeth, they even said there's a significant risk as it pertains to autism, ADHD, autism, intellectual disabilities, and specific delays in development. So they say findings present from the study, compiled with previous studies, suggest new risk-benefit analysis of water fluoridation should be undertaken. Now, this is BMC Pediatrics. Now, some people are, saying, well, maybe the study, has some limitations. All studies have limitations. But this follows the NIH study that was done during the Biden administration, where it looked at fluoride and it affecting kids' IQs. So too much fluoride has been proven time and time again to not be as neurologically beneficial. Now, being a strong proponent of healthy teeth and good access to dental care and fluoride, etc., I love the idea that we're protecting tooth decay because tooth decay leads to periodontal disease. Periodontal disease leads to heart disease, intellectual difficulties, developmental disabilities. So we do want our children to have good teeth. But is fluoridating the water the safest way to do that? At the cost of fluoridating the water, should we just be handing out free fluoridated toothpaste to families who aren't able to get their own? Should we ensure that kids are on vitamins that have the fluoride? The fluoridated water, the difficulty with that is we don't know how much everybody's getting. Now, many, of us in our family, we drink, bottled water, so we're not necessarily drinking tap water, but many households drink tap water. And during the summer, when the kids are running around and they're thirsty, they're hitting that faucet a lot more than they'd be hitting it in the winter. So how do we know how much fluoride they're getting? We've learned that you can overdose. Look at vitamin A toxicity. Many people are taking vitamin A to help stave off measles or fight measles. Well, there is vitamin A toxicity where you could take too much. So my concern is, people are like, oh, but I don't want kids getting vitamins. They're going to get too much in the vitamins. At least you know the micrograms. At least you have, hopefully, I understand not all of these supplements are being overseen, but, if we do start to at least we could quantitate what they're getting. My issue with the fluoridated water is we just don't know how much, not to mention you're also washing your fruit with it. You're cooking with it. And so does it build up and does it accumulate? Do some pediatric populations allow fluoride accumulation more than others? And so, we do need to figure out why 1 in 36 children are on autism spectrum disorder. That means a child in every class is now struggling with either a neurodegenerative, neurodiverse disorder, and people with autism may struggle socially. They may struggle with careers. Some of them, they do really well, like Einstein has been postulated to have autism spectrum. Now, some of them are brilliant minds and are the reason why we've made so many advances, but others, they do struggle, and they struggle in society. And so if we're doing that to them, we need to figure that out. So this is another study in BMC Pediatrics suggesting that it should be looked at. Okay, they're not saying to immediately stop the fluoridation, but look at it. And I understand, Bernie Sanders has been saying we don't need to relitigate the science as it pertains to vaccines and all that. Science is always evolving, and we're changing, and our access to things are changing. And if we are doing something that could be hurting kids, we need to figure that out and figure that out fast. At the same time, protecting their teeth and allowing them to have fluoride toothpaste and other sorts of access to fluoride. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So there have been, I believe, 3 plane incidents in the last 24 hour flying incidents in the last 24 hours. And it's just shocking. And people say, well, we're reporting on it more. No. These are pretty, I understand. One of them was 2 planes clipping wings at Ronald Reagan Airport at DCA in DC. Some members of Congress were on board. Everybody was okay, thank God. But a plane hit another plane's wing while on a runway at Reagan National Airport. This happened yesterday morning. Not sure how that happened. They're investigating, but American Airlines, 2 of them clipped wings, and one was, I guess, headed to JFK, another headed to Charleston. But sadly, we've had casualties, multiple casualties. This morning, there was a small plane that crashed in Boca Raton, Florida. We believe that 3 people were on that plane and feared dead. This crash happened shortly after 10 a.m. local time today. It involved a Cessna 310R, according to Daily Mail. And you see people posting, oh my gosh, a plane just crashed. And you see the fireball and you see all the smoke. We don't have, they're still looking at the cause, and they're looking for footage to possibly see what happened. Oftentimes when you see a plane or a aircraft, the footage of it prior to the crash, you could then figure out possibly what could have happened. But NBC6 reported that 2 dead bodies had been spotted in the wreckage by one of its helicopter crews. Officials have yet to confirm the total number. We are believed that there may be at least 3. There was a truck or a car that was struck also. We do not know if the person driving that truck or car sustained any injuries. But from what we understand, the aircraft took off from Boca Raton, was in the air for under 20 minutes before it crashed. The pilot and passengers were flying to Tallahassee when the disaster struck. So we'll keep you posted on that. Yesterday, we were also just all shocked at that family of 5, as well as the pilot who died in a helicopter crash in New York City. They apparently 2 were still alive when they were found, but succumbed to their injuries by the time they made it to the hospital. But a family from Spain were tragically killed when their tour helicopter plunged into the New York's Hudson River. Agustin Escobar is a Siemens executive from Spain. His wife, Mercy Comprubi Montal, and their 2 young daughters, age 4 and 5, as well as her 11-year-old son, were all on the sightseeing chopper. And sadly, it plummeted into the Hudson River. There was a pilot on, the pilot is a 36-year-old, has not been named, was also killed. They are waiting to notify first of kin before they publish the names. And so when you look at the footage, it looks like the rudder or the rotor breaks off. It looks like it was also missing part of its back wing, and it landed upside down in the water. No way to control the aircraft, and we aren't sure why this happened. There's been videos circulating online of some maneuvers being done. I don't think that video is the video of this helicopter. So there's been some, I guess, theories out there that, from what I understand, the company is a very well-known company. It sounds to me like the aircraft broke off, or there was definitely mechanical failure, not so much from an engine, but from the ability to be able to maintain it. Helicopters are one of the most dangerous aircraft. My husband's a pilot, and he does not like getting into helicopters. It's just they won't glide. You have a problem with an engine, sometimes you could get it to glide, like the Cessnas and Pipers, although I'm not sure what happened with the Boca Raton aircraft. But this looked like it they just completely lost the ability to maintain altitude, and then it just tumbled to the ground. The water is about 40 some degrees, so close to freezing water. 2 of the passengers were alive when divers jumped in fast. I mean, just, we aren't sure if they were conscious at the time, but sadly they were both declared dead. So the whole family, I can't even begin to fathom why we're having so many issues as it pertains to aircraft in the last few months. But I think an underlying possible denominator is somebody's not doing their job. Either a mechanic, either an engineer, either a air traffic controller, either and I almost feel like that maybe some of our aircraft, I mean, look at what happened with that side paneling that just flew off in the middle of an Alaska Airlines flight last year, where things might be just made half-assed. Now, I don't know what could have possibly happened to this helicopter for it to lose its wing and its rotor, and you guys know more about helicopters than I do. But, we keep hearing of these, and I understand the most everybody always says the most dangerous part of flying is the ride to and from the airport. I get that. My husband says that to me all the time. Because I always worry about, getting into a plane, and I fly a lot. I travel a lot, but I still worry, and I pray. I pray extensively. I tell the kids to pray before they get on the plane. But we're sadly, what could be a different? I mean, we've had planes now for over a century. What is happening differently? Is it that we've cut costs? Is it that we're not manufacturing things the way they should be? Is it that we don't have enough mechanics? Maybe we don't have enough people trained, so that we're short. And people feel right. I'm not blaming a mechanic on any of these, but maybe it's that people are overwhelmed, or they're overtired, or they're high. I don't know. But somebody needs to look at why in the last year or two we have had so many more issues than we shouldn't have had, and especially in the last few months. And people say, well, it's because Trump fired people from the FAA. Listen, shrinking the size of an overly bloated government, all right, when you're firing people who aren't veteran and probationary, might have a very, very small effect on, flight safety. But in terms of what we're seeing, okay, I'm sorry, you can't be blaming Trump for what happened with the helicopter. Can't be blaming, I told my husband, I go, look, I really believe in your ability to fly. I just don't know if I could trust the actual plane or mechanic or weather or flock of birds. And so, I just think there's just too many variables. And if those variables aren't done with the utmost precision, when I took flying lessons, the pre-check took longer than the flight. The amount of things we had to do to pre-check. And I didn't blame it. I didn't balk at it. I was like, I agree. You do, and there's a list. You have to follow the list. You have to check off the list. Because you want to make sure that everything is working before you go up there or bring anybody up there with you. And I'm sure everybody is doing their pre-flight, but why are we having aircraft break apart up in air, losing panels, losing propulsion? Why are we having planes hitting each other on a runway or on a tarmac? Why are we, what are we missing? And my guess is it's something obvious and nobody wants to say. And I'm not saying drug screen everybody. I'm not blaming marijuana per se, but there's got to be a common denominator. What is different now than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? We haven't had this many issues. If you remember when Pete Buttigieg first started with the Department of Transportation, there seemed like every day there was a train incident, a train derailing. Now it looks like they got that under control. So I'm not sure what changed. What new protocol? What did we do differently? What sort of manufacture change or quality assurance? There's something we're doing differently. But I mean, we've been using helicopters for decades. We've been using, and I understand, they have issues. Hawaii, my friend who's an ER doc in Hawaii says you wouldn't believe how many helicopter issues. But, somebody needs to figure this out and fast. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We are going to be taking your calls and your questions, your comments. We just got so much news that we definitely want to hit all that. And whatever I can't get to in terms of your calls or your questions, we will definitely get to at the next show. So thank you guys for being patient. So I have been begging for decades that we stop the clock change, the biannual clock change. And this has been something that states have passed. Some want year-round standards, some want year-round savings. But bipartisanly, Democrats and Republicans agree that we should stop changing the clocks. And this has probably been one of the most powerful, united shall we say, platforms or requests to that where we all agree on this. And even, we have a petition where hundreds of thousands of people have signed saying we need to stop the time change. We're sick of spring forward and we're finished with fall back. Just pick one and stick with it. I don't care if it's standard. I don't care if it's savings. Doctors do prefer standard time. I really like what we have during Christmas time. I sleep better. Many sleep foundations and professionals and specialists in sleep say you do sleep better during standard. But you know what? I don't care whether it's savings or standard. I just want year round. And Trump has said multiple times he wants this to happen. Now, he's not the first person that's wanted this to happen. When Secretary of State Marco Rubio was a senator, he had introduced the Sunshine Protection Act, which allowed us to have year-round daylight savings, and which is basically the time we have now. And so from what I'm seeing, there is Congress is now looking at this again. And they have bipartisan support. So what's the holdup? Well, President Donald Trump called on Friday, this was today, for Congress to adopt permanent daylight savings time, meaning that we would not have to change our clocks twice a year. So he wants Congress to start debating the issue, and a hearing was convened yesterday by the Senate Commerce Committee. And Trump had written on Truth Social, the House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of the day. Very popular. And most importantly, no more changing of the clocks. A big inconvenience. And for our government, a very costly event. And so Congress Chair Ted Cruz said there's a general consensus that the twice changing time clock should end. But this is the problem we keep seeing. People can't agree on standard or savings. Now, I live in Nevada. Nevada has passed multiple times through state legislature. We want savings. It's California through their propositions, and they have, and so Nevada will always parallel California. But multiple states are following a lot of doctors' recommendations on standard. And a lot of people prefer standard. I always have. I've always preferred standard. But so in order for this to go through, people need to agree. So you would think we could move forward on this because everybody wants to stop changing the clocks. But now everybody's disagreeing on standard versus savings. And they're not wrong. The people who want standard aren't wrong. I prefer standard time. But you know what? It's just an hour. It's more dangerous to have the clocks change twice a year than it just be savings or standard. So if we could get the states to agree, because otherwise it can be a mess. Yeah, I mean, look at what we have with Arizona and Hawaii. Nobody knows what the hell time it is. Okay, whereas we pretty much know in New York, now we know the time because it's Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Savings Time. You know, how this all started, we speak about this a lot on the show because I've written on this and I've been, advocating against it, was this started in wartime. Everybody kind of blames, Benjamin Franklin for this. Benjamin Franklin, should not be blamed. He just, in an essay to Parisians, back in the 1700s, discussed how they could save on candles if they wake up at a different time as the year changes. If you kind of work with the way the day and the night work, you could save on candles. But we didn't really start this until the wars. And I believe Germany was the first one to do this. So daylight savings time started in Germany in 1916. Then President Woodrow Wilson was the first to sign it into law in 1918. Why? They wanted to conserve coal during the Great War. Eventually it got repealed, but then in 1942, FDR had to again for conservation of coal needed for the war efforts. And so FDR made daylight saving time year round, but it was called wartime at the time. So after the war, you didn't need wartime anymore. Well, some states are like, well, I like this. And so after FDR, after the war ended, states were able to choose what they wanted. The problem is it wasn't uniform. So Lyndon B. Johnson had to sign the Uniform Time Act. And then it was called the Uniform Time Law of 1966. And that was where daylight savings time began on the last Sunday of April, and it ended to the last Sunday of October. So for those of us growing up going, wait a second, I remember this happening around Halloween. It got changed. In 2007, the Energy Policy Act, which was created back in 2005, declared that now it's going to be the second Sunday of March when daylight savings time begins, and then it ends the first Sunday of November. Now, Arizona and Hawaii, they just still do their own thing. They don't convert. And so my issue as a physician is there's risks. We see heart attack risks go up when you spring forward and lose that extra hour. We see an uptick in car accidents. In fact, I heard one of the congressmen say that sentencing the Monday after daylight savings time was generally more severe because judges were grumpy, losing that extra hour of sleep. So people, I mean, people take this hour pretty seriously. And as much as I want to tell everybody to buck up and toughen up and quit being a weenie, I do think it's ridiculous that we're changing our clocks twice a year. It's stupid. We aren't in a war. And if we are, we have other means. We don't have to save coal right now. And every I don't want to say 6 months because it's a little, we have more standard than savings time. But twice a year, we hear everybody bitch and complain about how we need to stop this. And President Trump might be finally the first president to say, guys, let's do this. Now, is everybody going to be happy? No. A lot of us want standard. But, yeah, you know what? Not the biggest deal. Fine. as long as we aren't changing the clocks. Now, they did try this in January in the 70s. So what went wrong there, if I can find the exact date? So what happened is during the Nixon era, they tried to, it was in the 1970s. They tried daylight savings time, but what they did wrong is they did this on January 7th of 1974. So they decided to do an abrupt change on January 7th. Well, then there were car accidents and kids were out in the cold and the dark and they needed that extra hour. And so it wasn't very popular. They had to change it again. How they would do it is we would just not change the clock this fall. We would just stay. Now, I know some people are like, oh, but I like that extra hour of sleep. I get it. I know. And actually you have a negative risk of heart attacks and blood pressure spikes and fertility and workplace accidents and suicide, as opposed to the spring forward where there's an uptick of those. But that's how they would do it. So you wouldn't feel a thing. You just wouldn't change the clocks. The dogs, the pets, the babies, nobody, when, second week of November comes, you just keep just doing what you're doing. So it would be more transitional and milder. You wouldn't feel it. So even though I and a lot of doctors prefer standard, I'll just take what we could get. It's just we need everybody to agree, is it going to be savings or standard? And it looks like they're going to move towards savings. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions: Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, Robert Kennedy Jr. has been definitely starting to look at what a lot of us have kind of been thinking, right? Going, look, are we sure that what we're doing is safe? Should we, just reevaluate and make sure the fluoride in the water is not hurting us? As we spoke about when we started the show, how a study from BMC Pediatrics had found that, yes, there is a severe higher risk of children with autism in those areas with fluoridated water. And so I definitely respect Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for at least reevaluating things. Well, one thing that he has brought up, that a lot of us have brought up, is should there be free food stamps and government assistance if people are using it for junk food, using it for cigarettes, using it for things that could harm their health. And so, and some people could be misconstruing that. I mean, honestly, if you have obesity or diabetes, I'm not going to be blaming donuts and things like that. Sorry. I have to sneeze, but I don't know when the sneeze is coming. It's very interesting. It's hard to sneeze and talk at the same time, but it looks like the sneeze went away. Good. But one thing that a lot of people have been discussing and asking is, how much do taxpayers have to take on if somebody is making bad food choices or bad health choices? Now, this is a very difficult subject, and I know RFK Jr. has brought that up. I think when he was during a CBS interview, he had said, if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, should you expect society to pay when you get sick? Now, this could be a very slippery slope. Now, he also said, he went on to say that donut and soda lovers cannot expect society to care for them. And so, I understand, and I am in full support of having SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, only go for healthy food. I don't think they should be going for junk food at all. Soda pop, no. It should all be healthy food. Fruits, vegetables, lean meat, dairy, that. And so there should be no reason. And people could say, yeah, but if somebody wants a soda, okay, if they want a soda, they want a soda, but we shouldn't have to pay for it. Our job with the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is to supplement their nutrition. There's nothing nutritious about a soda pop. So we do need to reevaluate what's going on with SNAP and make sure it's not going to junk food. Now, how it used to be is we used to, through WIC, and you would be able to go to the grocery store, grab the milk, grab the eggs, grab the fish, and that wasn't charged. So we knew you were actually getting the food. Well, to make things simpler, it's a debit card. Well, if people are using the debit card and they're just running the bill on the debit card, so there has to be we have to make sure that junk food, cigarettes, things like that, aren't paid by society. But where we really need to be careful in the slippery slope is if you say somebody made poor decisions with their health and society shouldn't pay for it, then nobody's getting health care. Who is deciding what was a bad decision? So, for example, I blew my knee out skiing. I was skiing. It was a black diamond. I hurt my knee. Well, that has started a process of knee arthritis. And I have one knee worse than the other knee. And the knee that's worse is the one I blew out skiing. And so I am going to probably need a knee replacement on that knee. Are you going to say, well, you were stupid, you were skiing? Why should I pay for you that had an issue that started when you were in your 20s and skied? So you see, where do we draw the line? Well, this person developed diabetes. Well, he's eating donuts. I don't think he ate donuts. I think he has diabetes because of genetics. Well, he had a donut. I mean, who's overseeing that? There's a lot of people with obesity because they have spinal stenosis, or they can't walk, or they have metabolism issues, or they have depression. So some people with depression, they go to drugs. Some people with depression, they go to alcohol. But some people with depression, they go to food. So are you saying you're not going to handle those people? You're not going to medically treat those people? So I don't think granularly RFK Jr. is going to not allow us to have health care for people who do struggle with obesity, with eating disorders, with cigarette habits, smoking habits. And he's not going to limit Medicaid or other insurance, but this has definitely made some made some headlines. I believe he told, I think in a previous interview, he said, should you then expect society to care for you when you predictably get very sick at the same level as somebody who was born with a congenital illness? So his thinking is, if you are making bad choices, you're not taking care of yourself. Do we have a society where it's like, don't worry, you can do whatever, we're going to take care, and where this thinking is coming from. And again, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand where it's coming from, because in the olden days, all right, if you got sick, I mean, it was on you. And so if there was somebody, you would, try not to catch a chill. You would not be doing a lot of daring things that could, because who's going to take care of you? So when you have to bear the responsibility of taking care of yourself, you think twice in terms of doing something. So I know a lot of people are like, oh man, yeah, I can't wait to, go to this. I think we have like a heart attack grill. So I think it's a restaurant called Heart Attack Grill. And I'm like, well, what if you do get, diabetes or high cholesterol or whatever? I go, there's medicines for that. We don't have a lot of people taking responsibility. They aren't as concerned. I was, teenage girls who were my patients, when I would ask them, okay, you're having sex now. What happens if you get pregnant? Oh, I'll just have an abortion. Well, so rather than, okay, well, if I got pregnant, then I have to figure out, how to raise a family. I have to, you used to think twice. Now it's no big deal. If I get pregnant, I could just have an abortion. And the taxpayers are going to pay for it. So I am not surprised that RFK Jr. is now in a position where he can kind of echo what a lot of us are thinking in terms of, wait a second, people are getting too lax on the taxpayers are just going to pay for whatever and take care of us so we can make, bad choices. When do we have more responsibility of our health? When do we have more skin in the game? It just, healthcare is so gosh darn expensive that we can't expect people to do that. If for those of you that served in the military and you use cigarettes to help keep you awake, to keep you less hungry, to cope, I completely understand why you smoked. I'm not here to judge. And so for our military members who now became addicted to smoking, we're not going to cover them. So, I get that might change the way some people think. Where, look, if you smoke and you get lung cancer, the taxpayers aren't paying for that. Maybe that might work for some. But the truth of the matter is the average person is not necessarily in control. Once you get addicted, you're addicted. And, RFK Jr. very heroically was able to manage his addictions. And he has been clean for years. So, the problem we have, the reason why this is being brought up is because the taxpayers are paying for everything now. Medicaid, why is Medicaid free? Why isn't it $5 a visit? Why aren't there work requirements for Medicaid? Medicare is where you're disabled and can't work, but Medicaid are full-bodied, able-to-work people, unless they also have Medicare and have a disability. So I think that's where the conversation needs to center. 1-877-DOC-Daliah.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.